Hey everyone, welcome back to Esthytech. In today's tutorial, we are diving into one of the most powerful ways to run Kubernetes in production, Amazon EKS. We'll be setting up a Kubernetes cluster using eksctl, a super simple CLI tool that makes the whole process smooth and fast. By the end of this session, you have your very own production-ready EKS cluster up and running, and you'll be able to start deploying workloads right away. So grab your coffee and let's get started. By the way, I've actually created a full documentation for this lab and I've uploaded it to my GitHub. I'm going to paste the link right here in the description box below this video. Feel free to click on that link, go over to my GitHub account, and you can even fork the repository so that you have your own copy to work with. The documentation is already well explained step by step, so you can read along and follow the instructions while we go through the lab together. This way, you don't just watch, you can practice and build with me. Set up EKS cluster using eksctl. There are various ways to set up Kubernetes cluster. For this class, we will set up a Kubernetes cluster in EKS using eksctl. This is the production-ready cluster we will use throughout the lab. Prerequisites. Before proceeding, ensure that you have the following prerequisites. AWS account. You need to have an AWS account with the appropriate permissions to create and manage EKS clusters. IAM permissions. Ensure that your IAM user has sufficient permissions to create an EKS cluster, EC2 instances, and other resources required by EKS. An administrator account works well. AWS CLI. The AWS command line interface CLI must be installed and configured AWS configure with your AWS credentials, access key, secret key, region. kubectl installed via Choco on Windows or Brew on Mac. eksctl installed. Again, Choco or Brew makes it easy. Make sure these are in place before moving forward. If you don't know how, you might want to watch all my videos on this topic before you follow along with this cluster setup. Install kubectl. kubectl is the Kubernetes command line tool used to interact with the cluster. You can install it following the instructions here. Note: you can use Choco on Windows or Brew on Mac. So now, like I said, we want to install we want to install. We want to install kubectl. So we are going to go to our search bar and we are looking for a terminal that we are going to use. So we want to type PowerShell. We want to use PowerShell, and this is PowerShell. You want to make sure that you open PowerShell as you want to run it as administrator. So we click here to run it as administrator. I don't know why it's telling me. Anyway, just say yes. So this is it. We are trying to install it as an administrator. I'm going to click here to maximize it so that we can see clearly. It's too big for my liking. So I'm gonna minimize it and I just control it a little. I can just drag it the way I want. It was so big for my liking. So let me just adjust it. So a moment please. So like I said, you can run this command. Are you seeing this? So we're gonna copy this one on Windows, Choco, install Kubernetes CTL. I think I already have that installed. I don't know. Let's just see. So you're just gonna run it here. Okay. Okay. Installing the following. Can you see? It's installed. And once we are done with that, for those that have Mac, you want to run the brew install. So now that we are done with that, we can also go ahead and check the version. So we can say kubectl version dash client copy and paste here. Yep. You can see our version is V132. Then it has a tag of 2, okay? So that is it. So V5, our Kubernetes close is kubectl is been installed. So the next prerequisite, what we are going to do next, we want to go ahead and install eksctl. That means EKS control, so that we will be able to go ahead and create our cluster. So this is a command on your PowerShell one as administrator. So we're going to click on that chuko install EKS. So now it's installing. You can see. So here we can click on, just type yes and click on enter. Okay, it's installing. The installation is complete, but let's just allow it to do all it works. So you can see it has been installed, right? So we can go ahead now and create our cluster. So I have, let's come back here. I don't know if I'm actually sharing or not. So guys, hold on. I want to make sure that I'm literally sharing my work. Okay, while we are actually installing, I would like us to check our AWS account, the one we are using. The IAM user that we are using, right? So we want to make sure that we verify our account. You can see we don't have any cluster yet. There is no cluster running. I don't have any cluster. Let's go to Cloudformation. Once I click on Cloudformation, you can see there is no stack. There is nothing created yet. So we are going to try and we are going to create our cluster. And once we create our cluster, you're going to see that it's going to be populated with our cluster. There is nothing is being created yet. So we're going to go ahead and complete this lab. Remember, we are installing the eksctl. So let's check if we are done with the installation, so we can go ahead and continue with our lab. So I'm going to minimize this. Okay. So you just want to go ahead and check if it is installed. That's the version. Version, in case you don't know, the command I ran is kubectl version dash client. And once I click enter, you can see the version. You can see it's installed. So now we know everything is ready. I am going to go out from my PowerShell. I would like to run it in my Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to use Bash terminal to continue with the process of this lab. So I'm going to head to my Visual Studio Code. Don't forget to verify the versions with Bash. So let's head to Visual Studio Code. Okay, so now we are in Visual Studio Code and we want to go ahead and create the cluster in EKS. And I want to use Bash. So remember, here is PowerShell and I want to use Bash. So I'm going to click here and search for Bash. You can see get Bash. So that's what we want. So I just changed my terminal from the PowerShell terminal to Bash. So this was a terminal. I just swapped from this terminal to this terminal. So I don't want to use PowerShell. I want to use Bash. You seeing that? So we are waiting for it to set. kubectl version dash 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 client and upgrade eksctl if you run into version issues. Refer to the following documentation to install eksctl on your system if the above commands do not work for you. Link here. Now comes the fun part, creating our cluster. Run this command. Run this command. So, and I'm going to tell you what the command all entails. So let's examine this command. So we can see that here we're having EKS control create cluster, because what are we creating? We are creating a cluster using Elastic Kubernetes Service
ekctl its own control to create it, and we are naming it so that that's name the name of our cluster. That's the name of our cluster, my cluster. You can name it your cluster name. So the region dash region US is one. So we want to make sure that we specify the region that we're going to be creating the cluster. Then now you're going to say dash node group name, because you need the node group name. So the node group name that we're going to be using, my nodes, then the type of node, so that dash type, because they have various type. So we are using T3 small. You can use whatever version or whatever type that you like. Then how many nodes do we want? We said that dash node 2. We need 2 nodes. That is dash one for minimum. This dash node, the minimum and the max that you want to be running.
Note,
So
this command will take about 10 to 15 minutes depending on your computer and network connection. Be patient and wait till the end of the process. Warning: if you see errors like this, you need to upgrade your eksctl version. On Windows, run choco upgrade eksctl or brew upgrade eksctl on Mac. Warning: if you get an error, already exists exception, stack dot dot in your terminal when launching the cluster. Just log into AWS and delete the corresponding Cloudformation stack. You might need to forcefully delete it with the option force, and that will delete the entire stack. After creating the cluster, the local kubeconfig file is automatically upgraded with your cluster information. No need to update the context. You can start to interact with the cluster. Verify that you can access the cluster by running kubectl get nodes, and you should see nodes ready like this. Note: if the previous throws an error, then update the kube config with the command AWS EKS update kube config dash dash region US East 1 dash dash name my cluster and retry. But here we have a success. There are some basic commands that help you navigate and monitor your cluster as shown in the documentation. Let's execute some. Run kubectl cluster info dump to get details about the cluster, API server, components, etc.
yep. So let me bring it here. You can see. Are you seeing? It's dumping every detail about your cluster, the APIs, servers, and the component. Everything is being dumped here. So
kubectl config view to view the kube config file.
so you can see it's actually literally working. So kube config view. You can view your cluster. You can see the version on the cluster, the certificate. You can see all your certificates, the name of your cluster. There's a lot of information here.
kubectl gets nodes to list all nodes in the Kubernetes cluster. When you're done practicing, delete the cluster to avoid costs.
So you can literally see. Can you see that? Using the version. Can you see all this information? Here we go. So our cluster is ready, and it is actually running, and it is actually active. After you're done with your
Run this command only when you are done practicing. eksctl delete cluster dash dash name my cluster dash dash region US East 1. Note: Always clean up your resources to save money in AWS. After deleting the cluster, you can verify in Cloudformation that all the stacks related to the cluster creation were successfully deleted. But we are going to skip this step since we want to use our cluster in the next video. We'll dive deeper into deploying workloads on this cluster and managing them
Once you
effectively.
go to your AWS account, you can see your clusters. You can see the stack. First of all, let me take you here. This is where we are. This is a normal page. Remember, when we check our Cloudformation from the beginning of this video, we have no stack. It was zero stack because we didn't have anything. But now you can see our stack, 1, 2, and it's completed. So it's successfully created and we have examined it. We can see that we have a lot of stuff. So let's just go ahead and view our account. So we can go here. Yeah, you can see our, let's come back here, Kubernetes service and see what we have here. Now you can see when we click on the service Kubernetes, look at it. There's a time, almost 42 minutes ago, our EKS provide cluster is ready, and you can see standard support until March. You can just go ahead. It was upgraded now. So you can see it's active, and that's the name of our cluster. You can click your cluster so that you can go ahead and have a thorough examination of this cluster. So we're going to go ahead and delete this cluster, but before we delete this cluster, I would like us to work with another lab. So we are going to keep our cluster because we want to do another example. We want to use the resources on AWS now that we have the cluster so that we can practice. So um, in the next video, right, that I'm going to create, I'm going to dive deeper into deploying a workload on our cluster and manage them effectively. So we're going to create a deployment in this cluster. So that's why I'm not going to delete it. We are going to work on that before we can finally delete our cluster. So it's always good to clean up your resources so that you can save money in AWS. After deleting your cluster, you can verify your Cloudformation stack, and if there is nothing there, it means everything was deleted successfully. Right now, we can see that we have some resources in Cloudformation, and you can see our EKS is still running here, and we don't want to delete it because we just want to go ahead and work. So let's okay, this is our cluster. So let me see, like, look at the dashboard. Okay, here we go. So go back here. So clusters.
And that's it. You've just created, verified, and even cleaned up a Kubernetes cluster on Amazon EKS using eksctl. If you found this tutorial helpful, please smash that like button, subscribe to Esthytech, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next lesson. And hey, drop your questions in the comments. I'd love to hear how your cluster setup went. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep learning with Esthytech.
Let's build the future. One line of code, one dream at a time. From the cloud to the console, the rhythm flows. Innovation lives where the knowledge grows. Esthytech, your tech journey starts here. You code it, dream it, live it. One line of code, one dream at a time. From the cloud to the console, the rhythm flows. Innovation lives where the knowledge grows.